In the previous video, we focused on variables within Sass and how we can use them to create style sheets that we can change and maintain easily. In this video we're going to talk about nesting, which I consider to be the second most useful aspect of Sass, and one that will seem very familiar to many of you. So let's look again at the elements we created in the previous video when we created both an element and a container. We used a quite generic name for the element, and so it's possible that we may have different types of elements in different types of containers, each of them being styled differently. If you were using normal CSS here, you may add container before the element, and then the style will only apply to elements within containers identified with this specific class. With Sass, however, you can simply move this entire element style inside of the container style. And this is why I considered whitespace not having any meaning in SCSS so important. Because if you were using Sass, you would also need to check each line to ensure that it's aligned properly. This is an extremely simple example, so instead let's have a look at something you will definitely encounter when you are creating a style of your own, which is styling a hyperlink. To style a hyperlink fully, you first need to style the anchor element. You're then going to need to specify a style for the anchor element when you hover your mouse over it, when you have visited the page previously, when it is active, and also when it's just a default link. If you are styling this using native CSS, that's potentially 5 different styles to consider. With Sass, however, we can move all of the different states inside of the main anchor style, and if we add in different colour for each different demonstration, Sass will create the different styles for us automatically. Now let's take another look at the container and elements that we created styles for earlier. These two styles are both contextually relevant to one another, but what if we also wanted to style a generic button which is going to be used across the entire site, not just this page? The button would have no real contextual relevance to the container on this article, so including it in the same style sheet might be confusing to people, because it implies that they are related. If you were to think of these styles in some sort of object-oriented way, you may think of the element as being a child of the container class, while the button and its style would be a separate class entirely. To help separate out different elements into different contexts, like you might find with object-oriented programming, and therefore simplify your styles, Sass allows you to import style sheets into other style sheets. And these smaller style sheets which you import are called partials. Using partials, you can style your container and element in one style sheet, and your buttons in a separate style sheet, and work on them individually without the confusion of a bunch of styles which have no relevance to one another interfering with your current style. When you compile your file into CSS, all of the separate files are merged into a single file, so you don't need to worry about anything else when you're actually writing your web page. So let's take a look at how you do it. First off, let's create a new file in the Sass folder called _blog.scss. Notice the underscore at the beginning. That's important because that signals to Koala that this isn't a style sheet in its own right, it's just part of another style sheet. I'm just going to move the contents of our current main.scss file across into this new file. Now we have the styles in this new file, we need to import it into the main style sheet again, because right now the main style sheet and this partial are not connected in any way. To import the partial into the main style sheet, you just need to type @import blog in single quotation marks, followed by a semicolon. And on this occasion you don't include the underscore or the extension. If we take a look at the CSS file again now, it's exactly as we would expect it to be, with the contents of the blog.css file being imported properly. We started this section by talking about styling a button, so let's go ahead and do that as well. We just need to create a new file which we will call _button.scss. Remember the underscore at the start, and we'll add in a super simple style. In the main.scss file, we'll also add in the @import button line, and if we take a look at the native CSS file again, we'll see that our button style has been added in after the container and element styles. You can structure your partials however you like, as there is no set of rules that you must follow, but I've found that structuring styles similar to how you would style an MVC framework in PHP or any other programming language to be very easy to use. Don't worry if that doesn't make sense to you. It just means that if you're working on a blog page, you would put all of the styles related to that blog in one partial. If you also had a new page, all of the specific styles to that new page would go into a separate file, and so on and so forth. But everything that is used on many pages, so buttons or a header or a footer for example, would all be partials on their own. We've talked about breaking our styles down into substyles within this video, but everything that we've done has been very static. We can't customize any of the styles within any of the partials that we've created so far. And so in the next video we're going to look at something called mix-ins, which allows us to both have separated styles, but styles that we can customize depending on how we're actually going to use them in any specific instance. What do you think of this video? Has it been helpful? Have you learned something new? Let me know in the comments, hit that subscribe button and check out some of these other videos.